Good morning, everyone. Welcome to today's hearing. We're going to continue hearing evidence from those who were in the tower at the time of the fire.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, good morning.
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
So our next witness is Miss Petra Doulova. May I please call Miss Doulova?
Thank you.
I do solemnly, sincerely and truly
I do solemnly, sincerely and truly
declare and affirm that the evidence I shall give
that the evidence I shall give
shall be the truth,
shall be the truth,
the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
and nothing but the truth.
Good. Thank you very much indeed. Do sit down and make yourself comfortable.
Thank you.
Right? Yes, Mr. Willett.
Good morning. Can I start, please, by asking you to give the inquiry your full name?
My name is Petra Doulova.
Okay. And forgive me, is it Doulova or Doulova?
Doulova.
Doulova. Right. Can I begin by thanking you very much, Ms. Doulova, for coming here today and giving us your evidence and assisting the chairman in our work. Your contribution is, of course, very much appreciated. If at any time you need a break, then all you need to do is say so. We appreciate that going through the events of the night is often quite difficult. So we're very happy to take a break at any time you want to. We'll probably not sit for more than 45 minutes at a time in order to have proper breaks. If at any time there's a question I ask you which you don't understand or you want me to repeat, I'm very happy to repeat the question or put it in a different way. And if I'm not looking at you when you're answering my questions, it's because I'm looking at the screen to follow what you're saying on the record. Okay? Can I ask you then, please, first to be shown your witness statement, IWS 835. And it's there on the screen on the desk in front of you, or we can look at it on the screen at the back of the hall. This is the first page of the statement that you've made for the inquiry. Can we please go to the last page of that statement, which is page 14? We can see that it carries a date of the 29th of June 2018 and a signature. Is that your signature?
It is my signature.
Have you had an opportunity to read this statement recently?
Yes.
You have. And are the contents of this statement true?
They are true, yes.
Thank you. You've also provided to the inquiry some exhibits that you've got to your statement, PD1 and PD2, and those are IWS quintuple 0, 832 and 833. 832 is a plan of your flat, a plan of floor 20, and 833 is a plan of your flat. If we can just have, first of all, the plan of floor 20 up. Is that your first exhibit?
Yes.
And secondly, 833, the plan of your flat. Is that the plan of your flat?
Yes, it is.
Thank you. Can I start then just by asking you some background questions? I think you moved into Grenfell Tower, is this right, in 1998?
That's right.
So at the time of the fire, you'd lived there for something like 19 years?
Yes.
Yes. And your husband, I think, had a secure tenancy?
Yes.
Yes. Can you remember who his tenancy was with?
He initially had a tenancy with a friend, Maria Lausma, who hasn't lived in there for many years. Since basically I moved in there, she was no longer living in the flat. I think she moved back to her country, Finland.
And at the time of the fire, do you know who your husband had a tenancy with?
I think the tenancy terms haven't changed.
Right. You don't know who the tenancy was with?
I think it was the same, the initial tenancy he had.
Right. Do you know whether you made any modifications to your flat?
We made numerous modifications. We put in floors, we changed the kitchen, usually decorations, paintings.
Right. Can I ask you to look at page 3 of your statement? And on page 3, paragraph 18. You say there that everyone on the 20th floor, except for us, had their front door changed and found them difficult to open and close. And then you go on to say there was a choice of 3 new front doors. They were all made of PVC or aluminium, and some had frosted glass panel. However, my husband told the TMO we wanted to keep our original front door. First of all, the reference to the TMO there, is that a reference to the person with whom your husband had the tenancy?
It was the organisation that was employed or organised to manage the block and the flats.
Right.
I don't know if the tenancy initially was with TMO, probably not, because it's been a long tenancy. So, TMO was basically involved in managing and running, and was tasked with all the refurbishments and anything to do with changes to the flats.
On behalf of RBKC?
On behalf of the RBKC, yes.
And now, my first question, looking at this paragraph, is did the TMO offer you or your husband the choice of keeping the old front door?
As I recall, there was no choice. I think the way it was put was that these doors need to be changed. I think we didn't like the new doors. We didn't like the quality. We didn't like that it was made of what to me and to us look a cheap plastic material. We thought that our original door was a very secure, very hard wooden door. And we just didn't feel comfortable with the changes offered. And decided not to have the doors changed. And I believe it caused some problems and some quite upsetting behaviour from the TMO and the council, threatening all sorts of legal actions if he didn't comply. I think in the end, my husband was the one dealing with it, and I think he might have got a local MP involved. And in the end, we kept the original door.
Do you remember roughly when this was?
I don't recall exactly. It was definitely a couple of years before the refurbishment.
Right.
I think.
You say that everyone on the 20th floor had their front door changed and found them difficult to open and close. How did you know that your neighbours on the 20th floor found those doors difficult to open and close?
I think it's generally from seeing people, neighbours, in the left, you discuss these things. And I do remember that most people that I talked to didn't like the doors from the difficulty of keeping them closed or closing them. And also the doors with the glass panels caused some problem for some people letting in light and didn't feel secure and private enough. So generally from conversation and discussions from the people we met.
Right. And at paragraph 19 on the next page, well, at the bottom of the page, first of all, you say, our front door was wooden and heavy. I believe it was a proper solid fire door. It did not shut automatically. Was that the case at the time of the fire, that it didn't shut automatically?
It's the way the door is designed. There is a knob and there is a letterbox with a flop. So either you have to be quite forceful closing and shutting it, which causes lots of noise, or use your key to shut it gently.
Yes.
So on the night of the fire, it was my husband that was leaving after me, and he was a bit delayed trying to close the door. And there was a lock, and I think the lock was kind of open, so he had difficulty. So he realized he has to, open the lock and then close the door.
Yes.
So you had to manually close the door. Yes.
You had to manually close
Yes.
the door. So if you opened your front door to its fullest extent into the flat, what would happen to the door if you just left it?
I think it would probably close, but I don't think it would shut.
I see.
Maybe if there was a draft, I believe, and windows are open, the draft could cause it to slump shut. But I think if you just leave it open, it might close, but it might not shut.
After your neighbours on the 20th floor had changed their front doors, do you remember yourself whether those front doors shut automatically or not?
I don't recall.
You don't?
No.
You then say that at the end of paragraph 19, there were no obvious gaps between the door and the door frame. There were brushes at the bottom of the door. Were those brushes always there, or were they installed at a later time?
I remember they were always there. I don't know whether they were part of the door or whether they have been put there by my husband years ago.
Okay. Can I ask you then to look at page 4, a little bit lower down that page, paragraph 26. You say there that there was a dry riser, and this is under the heading, a paragraph or two up, communal area. There was a dry riser and air vents on the communal landing on the 20th floor, but I do not remember where the dry riser was located. The air vents used to make a lot of noise after the refurbishment. I just want to focus on what you say about the air vents. First of all, I want to show you a photograph taken by the inquiry through one of its experts of the interior of the fire after the fire. It doesn't show anything. It doesn't show the building on fire or anything like that. But are you all right to look at
Yes.
a photograph? I just ought to pause just for a moment because there may be people watching or in this room hearing who might find these photographs distressing. So, Mr. Chairman, if we can pause for a few seconds just to allow them to look away or leave. And just, if we can just ready the picture, it's BLA *0002513 and also 2514, if we can have both of those on the screen at the same time. We can now look at those. That's 2413. This photograph, perhaps if we can have the other one at the same time, 2514. There. Take a moment, Ms. Doulova, to look at these photographs. These were taken on the 6th floor of the tower. But can I just ask you to look at the right-hand photograph? You'll see towards the ground on that floor, against the far wall, or on the far wall, 2 vents. On your floor, floor 20, did you have those? Do you remember?
On that right side, I don't remember these vents. I remember the ones on the left side.
You remember those on the left side? Okay. So when you say the left side, the left-hand photograph?
The left-hand photograph, yes.
So you recall, is this right, that on the
Yes.
20th floor there were 2 vent inlets or outlets towards the ceiling?
Yes.
And were they in the same orientation as the lift? In other words, as you're looking at the lifts, to the right?
Yes.
Right, okay. But you don't remember those towards the ground, to the left of the lifts, as you look at the lifts?
I'm not 100% sure now.
All right. Now, you say in paragraph 26, just looking back at that paragraph, the air vents used to make a lot of noise after the refurbishment. Are you clear in your own mind that the air vents only started making noise after the refurbishment?
Yes, clearly I don't really remember even giving it a thought before. And following the refurbishment, it was quite a regular occurrence. I remember we discussing it. It was quite an unusual sound, quite humming, haunting, really quite difficult to comprehend. It was something was sucking up a lot of air at the same time.
Right.
And so definitely was happening quite a lot.
I'm interested in what you just said about the kind of noise, your description of the noise. Could you compare it with anything in your normal life, like a kitchen implement or something like that? How would it sound?
It's difficult to really describe. It really was a humming, low, kind of like a vent, a fan that's going on really, really fast.
Right. Would it be, when you were, say, standing in the middle of the lobby, louder than a vacuum cleaner, if a vacuum cleaner was placed in the same
It wasn't
place?
loud as that. It was more kind of... it wasn't as loud as a vacuum cleaner, but it was a very quite... It kind of dull sound.
Right.
It wasn't very, high pitch. It was very dull, but it was very consistent, very loud. You could actually really feel it. It wasn't... It felt like something was wrong with the building, really.
Could you feel it as well as hear it?
I don't think so. I don't remember.
Right.
It was the sound, really, that, caught your attention.
Okay. You said it was low. And there are technical reasons for me asking these rather strange questions, but you said it was a low sound. Does that mean low in the register, in the musical register, or more
Yes,
high-pitched?
I think so,
okay.
yeah.
Could you hear the vents when you were inside your flat? When they were making the noise you
Yeah.
described?
I don't think so.
And how often did they make the noise that you've described?
Again, I think it's hard for me to remember exactly, but for me to register and remember, and I know we discussed it, it definitely was regular. And I think particularly shortly after the whole refurbishment has been completed, it kind of registered as well. And so I can't really say how often, but it did happen because we did discuss it, and I think also with the neighbors. Again, when we met and discussed how we reacted to the refurbishment and the various complaints, that was one of the issues mentioned by neighbors as well.
Did you ever notice anything triggering it, like changes in temperature or weather conditions or any particular
No, I can't
event?
really say. No.
Did it happen? Did you hear this noise at particular times of the day?
I think for me, I would have either noticed it in the morning on the way to work, so that would have been 7:30 morning, or it would be in the evening coming back, so again 7:30 in the evening.
Right. But were those the occasions on which you were most often in
Yes.
the lobbies?
Yes.
So you don't actually know whether it was happening at lunchtime or...
Exactly, yes.
Okay. And when they did make this noise, did you notice a change in the temperature in the lobbies?
I don't really remember.
Okay. Did you notice any feeling of airflow in the lobbies when you heard that noise?
I can't really say. I don't know.
Did you
It's
ever...
quite a long time ago, and it's just really the sound that stayed with me.
Did you ever speak to anybody at the TMO about the noise you heard?
I discussed it at home with my husband, and I'm sure that he had there were other things of complaints that we had. Whether he raised the issue with the vents, I'm not sure.
Right. And do you remember what the last occasion was before the night of the fire, when you heard those vents?
I can't really remember, no.
Did you hear them, do you think, on the night of the fire when you returned home?
I can't say. I
Okay.
really don't know.
Right. If I can ask you to turn to page 6. You say at paragraphs 39 and 40 that when the new windows were installed, it reduced the light coming into the flat by at least 30%. It was the most depressing thing. We had been used to lots of light streaming into the flat and the most beautiful view. Just a timing question. When you say that when the new windows were installed, was that at the time of the refurbishment?
It was, yes.
And then you say in paragraph 40, our new bedroom window had a gap on one side between the frame and the wall. We complained to the TMO and the response was along the lines that no one will see it there, but we saw the gap every day. Now, I just want to focus on that. Can I first ask you to look at the plan of your flat that you've prepared, which is IWS 833, page 2. It's your second exhibit, PD2. Can I ask you, by reference to that flat, that you indicate which window you were referring to in this paragraph of your statement?
It's the window in the room A, which was our bedroom.
And which side of the window was the gap that you're talking about?
It was on the left side as you face in the window.
On the left side as you're facing the window. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, it wasn't a physical gap between, between the outside and us. It was more of the way the windows were installed and the standard of work and the attitude that we had when we raised complaints. It was kind of making a point of, it was your home, and it was kind of, for me, destroyed in a way. And it was just a general comment on how the council and the contractors and people dealing with us were kind of completely disregarding our comments. And I would point out, talking about the windows, that they were very drafty. I mean, we had the bed parallel to that wall with the window, and I slept close to the wall. And our flat was never cold. And suddenly, going through the draft, the wall was cold. In the winter, it was really, really cold. Draft. I could feel the draft sleeping there. And that was new experience for me. So something obviously wasn't quite right with the design there.
Right. Well, I just want to unpack that, because you've given us a lot of information in answering that question. I need to go back over that a little bit. First of all, before I do, can you just describe where your bed was in room A?
Okay, so it was by the window, parallel to that wall with the window.
So where the headboard of the bed would be facing north, or
facing north?
Okay, I see. And you would sleep on the west side, would you?
Yes,
towards the window.
That's correct. Yes.
Right. Now, I just want to go back to this gap. You say it wasn't a physical gap between the outside and us. I just want to understand what this gap looked like. When you look at the window of your bedroom, you're looking at the left-hand side of the window. What could you see? If you were looking for the gap, what would you see?
You couldn't see it from facing front. For me, it was just probably a detail, but it was the frame from the side that you could see when you kind of lean to the side. And the frame was, the gap between the wall and the frame was basically widening as it was going down. So that was what really I didn't like. It was that gap between the wall and the frame, which wasn't, you could see the widening.
Okay. Now, at the top of the window, you say it widened as it went down towards, is this right, towards the sill?
Yes.
The window sill. At the top, how wide would you say the gap was?
I think at the top was pretty snugly fit.
Right.
And as it went to the windowsill, it could have been 1 centimetre and a half.
Okay. Could you see at that bottom part, where you say it's a centimetre and a half wide, could you see inside the gap?
Yes.
You could. Could you see anything in there? Behind?
It was still part of the window frame. There was no, like as I said, physical gap, but it was just the point of how I don't think the windows were fit properly and correctly.
In that gap, did you ever feel air coming through?
I cannot say whether it was due to the gap or it was generally that the windows felt very drafty.
Okay. And that gap that you've described very clearly for us just now on that window, on that side, was that kind of gap anywhere else in your flat?
No.
Okay. Now, after you say you complained to the TMO about it, was it ever repaired?
No, it wasn't. And actually, I think my husband, we always had to sign on off work, and he didn't actually sign on that because I think we had an issue as well with some of the window panes and generally, as I said, the fixtures of the windows and the whole process. And also the windows weren't very safe. I remember a few occasions when we were washing them, they actually came off the hinges, which were dangerous, and it happened to my husband, and I witnessed it, so he had to put it back in, which obviously could have ended up, falling out of the 20th floor, falling out on us, could hurt anybody, could hurt us. And that happened twice, I recall, since we had the new windows.
Twice?
Yes.
How soon after the refurbishment did the window come away?
A couple of months.
Really? And did you take that up, or did your husband take that up with the TMO?
I think he would probably mention that, yes.
Right.
But I cannot say 100%, because he was dealing with the side of, dealing with the TMO and the council.
Yes. I'm going to ask you in a moment about the signing off that you've just referred to. But before I do, can I ask you to look at paragraph 47 of your statement on page 7? You say there in the third line, there was a constant draft through our windows in the flat. At night, the bedroom walls felt cold to the touch, and the walls under all of the windows. Which windows in your flat did you feel a constant draft coming through?
For me personally, it would be the bedroom, because I was so close to it at night.
Yes.
The others, I can't say. But I think importantly as well is that obviously we're talking about the windows, so I mentioned that the rooms were hot and cold because of the heating system, which we probably get to. So that's probably what more I would notice rather than the other windows. We also kept our windows open. We liked to keep fresh air. Even during the winter, we would keep them open during the day and just probably close them at night, and always kept at least one window open. So regarding the other windows, I can't really say whether they were that drafty.
Okay.
But for me, the issue was the bedroom.
The bedroom. Just going back to this bedroom window draft then, do you remember, can you tell us where in the window or around the window you felt the draft coming from?
Again, that's difficult to pinpoint. I would say I felt it more of the general coldness of the walls surrounding the window.
Right.
And the windowsill was always really, really cold on a touch as well. So for me, it was the general feel of the cold permeating through the walls. Really, that's what it felt like. And it was a draft. It wasn't just the cold. It really felt drafty in a way which I had never experienced before, which shouldn't happen when you have just one room without different windows open. You shouldn't feel that kind of cold coming through, I think.
Yes, it's just that in paragraph 47 you say there was a constant draft through our windows in the flat.
Yes.
And we've narrowed that down to the bedroom, and I just wanted to understand where this constant draft you could feel was coming from.
It's just the feeling that I had of the draft. I don't know exactly which part of the window was coming from, but it was a feeling of a draft.
If you put do you remember ever putting your hand around the window to work out where it was coming? You did?
It was mainly, I felt it mainly on the below the windowsill, on the wall below the window.
Right, and just exploring that a bit. So you've got the windowsill comes out and then returns back to the wall, does it? And it was under there that you felt the draft?
I think so, yes.
Right. Now, paragraph 48, you say, and you've told us just a few moments ago, due to our dissatisfaction with the work, my husband did not sign off the new windows and the heating system. Just focusing on signing off or not signing off the new windows, did TMO ever ask your husband to sign off the windows?
I think it was generally probably the contractors or the people doing the work. There was always a signing off of work completed, as I recall. And I know particularly for these two, for the heating system and for the windows, because of the issues that we had, he didn't sign off on that. I don't know what the forms with the signatures actually were for, whether anybody checked or whether they form part of any compliance or standards, I don't know. But I know that we always had to sign on the works, and for these two, we didn't.
Okay, can we just press that a little bit more? Do you remember whether there was a form or piece of paper, I think you referred to a moment ago, that the contractors asked you or your husband to sign?
Yes.
There was a form.
It was a paper, and I believe it stated the work completed, and it requires signature. I think that's really what it was.
And do you remember whether the form or piece of paper gave you or your husband an option to say, no, I'm not signing off, or I'm not happy?
Oh, I don't remember that. I just know that you either sign or if there was an option, it wasn't explained to us.
Okay. Did you have a discussion with your husband about whether he should sign to say he was happy with the windows?
Yeah, we were at the time, especially at the time of the windows and the heating, we both were at the flat. So we discussed this day-to-day basis, and we both agreed, in particular for these two, for the windows and the heating.
Do you remember whether anything happened as a result of your husband not signing off the form, saying that he signing off the windows?
I don't think nothing really happened. It looks to me again that probably was just a form for the contractors to show they're finished and completed the work done. And I don't recall anybody following up why we didn't sign or that there was a problem, us not signing.
Yes. Now, can I ask you then to go back to page 5 of your statement and look at paragraph 33. say there, and this is under the heading Refurbishments, a couple of paragraphs above, you say there were issues with electrical power surges at the tower. My computer and other electrical equipment would suddenly turn off. I cannot remember when this was. It may have coincided with some of the works on the tower, but I'm not 100% sure. I believe this issue was reported to the TMO, but it was my husband that always dealt with them. Did you experience any problems with the electricity power supply on the night of the 14th of June itself? 13th, 14th of June?
On the night, no.
On the night, no. What about the period of time shortly before that night?
I don't think short period of time, I don't think so. I mean, this was referring to, I think, even prior. Haven't thought about it. I think it was prior to the refurbishment. There were issues with the surges, and again, now talking to our neighbours that a lot of people had problems, and it caused problems with various appliances and electrical other equipment that you have, and that was definitely discussed with the TMO, I believe, at the time. Okay.
Okay, we're just talking about your own personal experience in your own flat. Did you or your husband? When was the last time that you or your husband experienced an electrical power surge such as that you describe here before the fire? Do you remember?
I think it was on this occasion that I recall myself. I don't really remember or recall any other time. But again, as I'm not there during the day, most of the week, if there was a smaller occurrence, probably not having such an impact, I might not have picked up on it.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Can I then ask you some questions about fire safety? We can start, I think, with page 8 of your statement, please, at paragraph 54. This is 2 paragraphs down from the heading Fire Safety. And we can read paragraphs 52 and 53. But at 54, you say, about 2 months before the fire, I remember a sign in the main lobby on the ground floor had been placed by the lift saying, do not use the lifts in case of fire, and stay inside the flat and wait for assistance. I had not noticed it before. This is the only sign that I can remember seeing in the building. When I read it, I remember thinking there was no way I would stay put. First of all, can the witness please be shown INQ 93, that's 6093. Is this sign familiar to you?
No.
So you've never seen a sign like this in Grenfell Tower?
I don't remember seeing it, no.
Okay. What was the sign that you say you did see? What did it look like?
It was just a note printed on a paper, and it was placed between the 2 lifts we had in a lobby in a ground floor. And I remember particularly as I came from work in the evening, and I saw a note, so I read it, and it stated, I cannot paraphrase, but as you put there, that in case of a fire, stay put, wait for assistance. And I remember thinking to myself straight away, that's very strange, that would be the complete opposite to what I would have done. And I remember coming back home and discussing it with my husband, and we both agreed that we definitely would want to get out of the building if there was a fire.
Right.
And I guess it's the sort of automatic action you do. I mean, you at work, you have these fire drills every twice a year. So you know what to do. You leave straight away. You don't use the lift, and that's it. And I guess maybe that kind of kicked in as well. I just didn't understand why I would stay, on a 20th floor if there's a fire. And we did discuss it, and we agreed that we would want to get out.
So this sign, you say, it was a note. You said it's a note printed on a paper.
Yes.
How was it attached to the wall? Do you know?
I don't really remember. It was sellotape or it was glued.
Right.
I have never seen it before, or maybe I haven't noticed it before. But that particular time, I did notice it.
Do you remember how long this piece of paper, sellotaped or glued to the wall, stayed there for?
I think it stayed there definitely for at least a week or 2.
Was it replaced by anything?
I don't remember If it was taken away, it would not be replaced with anything. I think it was just there for a purpose as an information. It was there between the two lifts, so it's in a place where I guess most people would have seen it and would have read it.
And you say it was printed on a piece of paper. I mean, could you just describe that? I mean, it's difficult to do, but did it look like a permanent? Did it look like a permanent notice?
No. It looked like a temporary notice. It didn't look permanent, and I hope I'm recalling it correctly. That's my recollection anyway. That I've seen the note, probably just text printed on a paper, glued, for people to inform and to read.
Now you say that this was about 2 months before the fire. You saw this sign. How do you know it was 2 months?
I think it was a guess. It wasn't later than 2 months.
Not later than 2 months.
Yeah.
Okay. And before you saw that sign there, did you ever see any fire notices in the building advising residents about what they should do in case there was a fire in the building?
I don't recall no notices, no.
What about on your floor, floor 20? Is there any notice there?
I don't remember any notice there. It well could be there was, and I haven't noticed it. I mean, there was a big communal lobby, and we had a lot of space for notices there, but I don't recall seeing any notice on what to do in case of a fire.
Right. And you lived in the tower by June 2017 for pretty much 19 years. During that time, do you remember there being other fires elsewhere in the building in that time?
I know there was a fire, but obviously it's something I learned after. I wasn't there at the time.
Right.
But this was prior to the refurbishment. And there was also an incident that my husband went through. I was at work. There was just an accident. Somebody left the pot next door, and I think the smoke that came to our flat, I think what my husband described, was so powerful and overwhelming. I think that kind of reinforced the notion of, if there's a serious fire, serious occurrence, you definitely don't want to stay somewhere when a fairly small accident leads to a flat full of smoke. So I guess these are the things that led to us to believe that the right thing to do was to leave in case there is a fire.
We'll come to that in just a moment, because I want to ask you about that. But before I do, can I just ask you, prior to seeing this sign about 2 months or so before the fire, was there any advice to residents that you knew about what residents should do in the event of a fire?
No.
Now, at paragraph 55, you say, as you've just told us, that you discussed the safety of the building and what we would do in the event of a fire. We both agreed that we would not follow the stay put advice. Can you tell us what were your reasons for coming to that decision?
I think it's just an instinct, and just thinking about how the building is, how it's designed. Thinking about the two lifts that obviously you shouldn't use in case of a fire, and also thinking about the stairwell. I mean, it's not the biggest, most widest stairwell. It's quite dark sometimes. I used it on numerous occasions when the lifts didn't work. And so I think the thinking was, if there's a fire, as soon as we can get out, given all these circumstances, the better. And also, as I mentioned, I'm used to from work, you leave the building when there's a fire, and I think that's just pretty much it. And also, I think it's probably relying on advice of somebody else, and you just want to make a responsibility for your own life. You just make yourself safe. And I cannot understand why the policy of stay put. I mean, I think the building as it was obviously already worked in case of a fire. But I guess still you would probably want to leave the building.
You say in paragraph 55, this led to my husband and I discussing the safety of the building. Would I be right in thinking that the this you referred to is the appearance of this notice on the ground floor by the lifts that you'd seen?
Yes. It was quite strange that it suddenly appeared, and I think it made me think about what will happen a little bit more. And so I do recall that we did discuss it, and we didn't go into great amount of details, like you asking me why we would leave. I think it's, as I said, more of a feel that we had, that we really'd rather be out than in.
And was there nothing else in the almost 19 years during which you were living in the tower that had prompted that discussion before?
No.
Right. Now, at page 8, paragraph 56, just below, you say, a few weeks later, we packed a bag of our most important documents and belongings, including our passports, in case we were evacuated from the building in a hurry. This bag was kept in the bedroom. What made you do that at that time?
I think, again, that stems back from the initial discussions that we had, and you think, what would happen if we suddenly have to run, if we had to leave? And we said, well, we don't have anything to take with us, anything ready, anything important. So we had the case, and my husband brought it, said, let's just put some important things in it. And actually, the weekend before the fire, I've put some of my personal possessions and put our passports in there, and I had some of my other documents, my birth certificates, and we put it in there, and it just so happened that it actually proved quite useful at the time, because that was the only documents we had left. And it was just these things led to the night, which was in a way strange, but that's what happened.
Yeah. Was there anything else that had happened between the discussion that you refer to in paragraph 55 that you had with your husband about the safety of the building and the time when you packed the bag?
Yes, we had a sudden visit from the fire brigade. I think it was the weekend, not before, but maybe the 2 weeks before. At the weekend, they knocked on our door, and they wanted to know whether we had smoke alarm and whether it worked.
Yes.
Which was unusual because it never happened before.
And you cover that at paragraph 57 of your statement in pretty much the same terms. Did you pack this bag before or after the visit from the London Fire Brigade that you described there?
I think this was two unrelated issues. Okay. I think the visit from the fire brigade was, it was unusual, but we always had a smoke alarm and always tested the batteries, and it works. So it was just a question of my husband saying, yes, we have it and it works, and that was it. They didn't come in, we didn't talk to them, and I didn't really give it much thought. So the packing of the bag was more of we discussed, the notice and what would we do in case of a fire, and just realizing that if we had to evacuate, we had nothing to take with us. And so I would say these were separate. The fire men coming to the flood was just what I recall happened again, which was quite unusual, that three things kind of happened shortly before the fire.
Yeah. My question was really whether you packed this bag before the London Fire Brigade came to do their visit, or whether you packed it as a result of them making
No, it wasn't
visit.
done as a result of them coming to our flat, no.
Right.
It was more of our discussions and the notice in the lifts and discussing what would we do in case of a fire. That really what was the impetus for, getting ourselves a little organized and getting the more important things so that we can easily take them in case we need them.
So was it before their visit that you packed the bag?
It could have been at a similar time, or it could have been slightly, the following weekend.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. When the LFB visited your flat, as you've described, did they advise you about what to do in case there was a fire?
No. It was, as I said, it was a very short discussion. I had my husband open the door, and there was a fire brigade asking whether we had a smoke alarm, whether it was functional. I think they might have wanted to come in. I think my husband said, no, it's in a hallway. I keep an eye on it. It's working. It's functional. And that was the extent of the interaction we had with them on that day.
did you ask, and I think you probably answered this question, but I'll ask it anyway, did you ask the London Fire Brigade representatives who came to your flat about the notice that you'd seen?
No.
And about what you should do?
No.
Did the LFB check your smoke alarms?
No.
They didn't. Was this the first visit that you'd ever had from the LFB, the London Fire Brigade, or had you had previous visits?
I think it was the first visit, yes.
As at June 2017, what was your understanding about what you, as a resident, should do in case there was a fire elsewhere in the block?
I don't think I had a clear idea. I mean, I knew somehow that the stay put policy, I know that the floods were designed. For some reason, whether we discussed it or whether we knew it was, or maybe it was just part of the notice that I'm now kind of linking this. Yeah, I don't think we had any discussions or any ideas or knew clearly what to do in case of a fire prior to the notice or
Yes.
even, I don't recall discussing it before.
Very well. Mr. Chairman, we've been going for just about 45 minutes. It may be appropriate now to take a short break. Are you happy to take a short break now?
If
How do you feel about
I
the break?
feel okay if everybody else is okay to continue.
Why don't we do it?
Let's
perhaps continue for a quarter of an hour.
Very,
Yes.
very
Takes
well.
to an hour,
Mr.
and
Chairman,
then
we can do that.
Yeah.
Certainly.
Perhaps we might all have a break then.
Yeah, thank you.
Ms. Doulova, I'm going to turn now to the night of the fire, okay, the 13th, 14th of June. You tell us on page 9 of your statement, where you pick this up at paragraph 60, that you spent the evening of the 13th of June 2017 with your husband, having come home from work about 7:15, and you'd gone to bed about 11 p.m. And you say, I think all of our flat windows were opened because it was summer and it was a lovely warm evening. Were all your flat windows open, including the windows in the...
I probably said all, but I think definitely the window at the bedroom, and probably because it was an open room, so the kitchen and living area, open plan, we definitely had one window open there, which would cover probably the whole open plan area, but definitely had windows open, yes.
And then in paragraph 61 you say, the next thing I remember was my husband jumping out of bed suddenly, waking me up. I then realised the smoke alarm in our hallway was going off. Now, just taking this step by step, if we can. You were still in the bedroom, is this right, when you heard the smoke alarm going off?
Yes, I wasn't woken up by the smoke alarm. I was woken up suddenly that my husband jumped out of bed. And it was only probably within a minute or so I realised that the alarm was, going on.
Yes. Did you put the lights on in the bedroom?
I think my husband did, yes.
Could you see any smoke inside the flat?
At that time, no.
Could you smell any smoke?
At that time when I just woke up, no.
Okay. You then go on to say that you got up and put some trousers on and then went into the hallway where you say, I thought I could smell smoke. That's paragraph 62. When you smelt the smoke, as you say in paragraph 62, did it have a particular smell or taste?
I don't really remember the exact taste or smell. I think what it was is that previously my husband went to see what was happening and opened the front door, and I probably let some of the smoke from the communal area come in the hallway.
Right.
And it definitely, I could probably more see and sense the smoke. Obviously, the hallway was lit, so you could see the smokiness of the room, and it was unusual.
Right.
And I guess maybe at the time I still wasn't thinking as clearly. I just woke up suddenly, and the alarm is off, and we kind of trying to figure out what is happening.
Did you get any kind of impression about what time it was?
I wasn't very clear at first, but I thought, and which was correct, when I got woken up by my husband, I looked at the clock. I had a digital alarm next to the bed, and I thought it was 1:20 when I woke up. And it was 1:20, yes.
When you went into the hall and you smelt smoke, could you see any smoke?
Yes. It wasn't very strong at the time. It was more like when you're in a smoky room, you can see in a light, you can see the smoke kind of wafting through.
Yes.
At first, yeah.
So a sort of opaque
Yes.
impression. Could you tell where the smoke that you could see was coming from?
No. I think the only place I went to kitchen. There was the window was open, just to kind of generally seeing what's happening. And I know at the time my husband told me that something seems to be happening and we might have to leave and go into the kitchen. The window was open. There was no smoke in the kitchen then. I didn't lean out, but I could hear people outside screaming, "Your building is on fire, get out." There was quite a lot of that. And so I just went to the bathroom, put my bathrobe on. My husband said, "Let's pick up 2 towels, wet them, and use them for when we have to leave, because it looks like we have to leave."
Yes.
And that was when I probably started to notice a little more of the detail and started to notice the smoke in the hallway. I didn't go to the living room. I just went from bedroom to hallway to kitchen, bathroom, and then hallway again.
Right. And in the hallway, where was the smoke concentrated?
I think it would have been more towards the ceiling.
Could you still see the ceiling?
Yes.
And at that stage, when you went into the hallway, I think I asked you before, but let me see if I can just get this right. Did the smoke have a particular smell? Did it smell like anything you'd smelt before?
In the hallway, I don't really remember the smell as it. I mean, it was like a smoke, as I said, in a smoky room where people smoke.
Right.
At the time, in our hallway.
Now, in paragraph 63 on page 9, you say, "I then went into the kitchen and looked out of the window, which was open. I could not see much, but I could hear a commotion outside." Now, your kitchen window, I think, faces west.
Yes.
You say you couldn't see much, and you then go on to say, in the third line, "I could not see any smoke or fire outside, but my husband leant further out of the window past the cladding and looked up." Where were you standing when he was leaning out?
I was behind him.
In which direction did he look up? Is it left or right? Do you remember?
So basically, just to quickly maybe explain because of the cladding, you had to really lean, quite widely out to see the same view we had before. And he really leaned, probably from his waist all the way, and he looked down, he looked to the left, to the right, and he leaned and kind of looked up, like seriously really lean out.
Yes.
And I didn't know at the time, but he told me later that he could see a lot of smoke rising from the back, like the top of the tower. And that's what made him realize that there's something quite big must be happening, because we couldn't see any fire at the time, or fire engines really. And that what really made his mind up that we should leave. And that was pretty much it.
Yes. So you're standing behind him. He leans out.
Yeah.
He looks up. Do you remember whether he was looking upwards to the right or upwards to the left as you're looking out
I think
the
he
window?
would looked on all sides, but then he looked kind of leaned up and looked upwards, really completely up at the top.
Right.
So kind of straight.
And you say in paragraph 63, a line up from the bottom, he saw smoke pouring out of the top of the tower. Did he tell you that?
At the time, no.
How did you know that he saw that?
When we talked later, he told me all this. I think on the night he probably didn't want to make the situation worse. I mean, he was very calm, outwardly, and very decisive, and that kind of calmed me down as well. So that when he said, "We need to get out," I just said, "Yeah, let's get out," and that was it. That was really the only thing on our minds afterwards. And I think when he told me what he saw, you have to realize that when he jumped out of the bed, he went to check if there's something inside our flat that's happening. And then he went to open the front door. And obviously I didn't see at the time what he saw or didn't see when he opened the front door. So he knew there was something serious going on. And then he saw the smoke come in from the other side. So all of these kind of inputs led to the decision of us leaving. Mm. And yeah, you're right. I didn't know at the time that he saw that. He told me later.
Right. Do you remember what he said to you at that moment when he looked up?
He just said, we have to leave. We get some towels, we wet them, and we take our bag and we go. So I just went and followed suit, basically put my trainers on, which I left there from the gym session the night before, and took a towel and then made my way to the front door.
I should have asked you before, where did you keep this bag that you had ready packed?
It was in a bedroom. It's just on top of, it's just literally by the door, so on top of my dresser there. Right. So he just grabbed that.
Okay.
I didn't go back in the bedroom. I didn't even pick up my phone or my bag. I just wanted to get out.
You say in paragraph 64, I went back into the hallway and it felt hazy. So did you go back into your hallway from the kitchen window? The kitchen?
Yes.
Okay. And when you went back into the hallway, you say it felt hazy. Was that hazier or more?
It felt a little more.
A little more. And was the smoke thicker at that time?
It felt thicker, yes.
Were the conditions in your hallway hotter? Did you feel heat?
No.
And at that time, on your, I think, second entry into the hallway, did you notice where the smoke was coming into the hallway from?
No, because I just went to the hallway to leave. So I haven't really noticed anything. So I opened the door, and that was when I kind of was astounded for what I saw. And I closed the door again.
Yes.
And for some reason, went to kitchen, to window to take a breath of fresh air before I attempted the second time. At that time, I left the flat. And obviously, the communal hallway was always well lit. It was spacious. And obviously, I lived there a long time, so I knew where the door to the stairwell was. But this was just something I've never experienced before. It was pitch black, full of really horrible, what felt like a toxic smoke. And the sound was very strange as well. It was like weird, kind of low, kind of humming, strange sound. So I just felt my way around the walls because I couldn't see anything. And I knew where the door was, so I kind of made my way to it. It was kind of opposite the lifts to the right. And I thought I found it. I was pushing, it wouldn't open. I realized it wasn't the door, it was a wall I was trying to push, so I had to feel a bit to the right. And then the door opened to the stairwell. And the first thing that really struck me was that there was nobody there. I was expecting a lot of people, leaving the building on a stairwell. There was nobody. And I just basically was waiting for my husband, who was behind me. I didn't know he was trying to close the door. And the feeling I had, what I saw on the stairwell, I cannot describe visually, but what I felt emotionally, I know at the time when I got there, I thought, well, this is really serious. We really need to get out quickly. And I remember calling to my husband to say, what's taking you so long? Please hurry up. We really have to go. And he did, finally, and he ran first past me. And unfortunately for him, because he was holding the bag in one hand and holding onto the rail to the other, he just had his towel on top of his head where I could hold it in front of my mouth.
Yes.
And we just went for it. I mean, we didn't walk down, we ran down. I mean, we really ran, and he would stop a few times to call out to see I was still behind, I was all right. And so we ran out, and already then the stairwell was smoky. Right. And I think I just saw my trainers and the handrail. And as we were running down, I think the conditions were getting worse. I mean, the smoke was filled, it was darker. And we ran towards, I think, between 4 and 6 firefighters or even more. I think as we were reaching, definitely below a 10th floor. And as we were running towards that space, the smoke was getting really quite worrying and thick. And I felt, wow, are we running into something, quite bad here? But we saw the firemen, they didn't stop us, so I thought, well, it must be okay to go through. And I just recall that they had the fire door open at one floor. I cannot say which floor that was. And I know the door was open and they had a lot of hoses and there was a lot of activity going on. And that's where the smoke was really the thickest. Once we ran past there, the air cleared and we went to the mezzanine and down the stairs. And then we exited via the east exit, which was on the main exit on the east side. And the problem was that as we ran down, there was nobody down there to kind of guide us or tell us to be careful. I mean, we nearly got hit by the debris that was falling from the building. And then we made very carefully out towards the south side of the building, towards like the garage floor. And that's where we look up, and that's where we really saw what was happening. And I think the whole eastern wall of the tower was basically on fire. And that's the first we saw.
Yes. Ms. Doulova, thank you for all of that. We're going to take a break now, and it'll allow me to read through what you've just told us and see
Sure.
if I have any more questions for you. I think I will. But if that's a convenient moment, Mr.
Yes, I
Chairman,
think it is. We'll
we
take a
can
break.
take a break.
Thank you.
I'm going to say 11:15.
Yes.
That's not going to be difficult.
No.
So it'll give you time to stretch your legs, have a cup of coffee or whatever. I have to ask you, please, not to talk to anyone about your evidence while you're out of the room.
Okay.
All right? And if you go with the usher, she'll look after you. We'll resume at 11:15. Thanks so much. Right, 11:15 then, please. Right, Ms. Doulova, happy to carry on?
Yes.
Good, thank you.
Ms. Doulova, thank you for coming back to us. Can I ask you, please, first to be shown a picture of a fire notice, which is IWS quintuple 0500. That may be a misreference. It was
So there's a pitch.
right. Well, we've got it. Yes, it's IWS quintuple 0 5 zeros 500. That's it. Thank you very much. We found it. And the reference is correct. Have a moment to look at this notice. It says, the Royal Borough of Kensington and Chelsea, in case of fire, use nearest telephone and call fire brigade. Dial 999 and ask for, and it's not clear what that is. State clearly the location of the fire. Inform the porter immediately. Do not use the lifts, leave the building using the staircase, close all doors, do not re-enter the building. Do you remember ever seeing a sign like this?
I don't remember. Maybe I did see it and it didn't register. I don't remember this note.
Right. Can I ask you to then to go back in your statement, please, to paragraph 38, which you'll find on page 6. And there you say, paragraph 38, I refused to have the extractor fan in the kitchen window, so a white plastic MDF panel covered the area instead. Can you tell us, why did you refuse to have an extractor fan in the kitchen window?
I think for me it was more of an aesthetic decision. I didn't see the reason for it at the window. And I believe that we had discussion with our neighbors that had it, and they complained about the noise, and if I remember correctly. And so that we had discussion with the contractors at the time, and they put a panel to cover it was a small pane at the top of the window in a kitchen, so we had that covered. We didn't want it, both of us.
Okay. Now, can I pick up the story where we left off just before the break? And you've given us a very helpful and very detailed description of your exit and descent through the building and your exit from the building eventually. Can I just take a few things in stages, if I can? First of all, when you came out of your flat, who was it who opened the front door? Was it you or your husband?
I was.
It was you. Did you notice when you came out of your flat a change in the temperature?
It felt definitely much warmer than the flat, but I don't really remember much of a difference. I guess at the time, the focus was just to leave, and I think the confusion and trying to find your way probably didn't notice.
Okay. When you got out, or rather when you opened the door, could you see into the lobby?
No, it was pitch black.
Pitch black. Now you say that this is paragraphs 65 to 66, and perhaps we just ought to have those on the screen. You say, in the second line in para 65, the landing was full of thick black smoke. And that's the occasion when you then close the front door again. And then you say in 67, I composed myself, grabbed my keys in the hallway and opened the front door again. When you did that, where was your husband?
He was, I think, in the living room. He went there for some reason. He picked up a phone, mobile phone, which was useful later. I think that's where he was, and I know he was going to follow shortly after me.
Yes. And do you remember smelling the smoke or tasting it?
It was more of a feeling of breathing. It felt. Just breathing was very difficult. It's very hard, and I think it was all the senses coming together. You know, the visual, the pitch black, the smoke, the kind of overwhelmed kind of senses all at once.
Yes.
I think it was more of that than picking up one particular thing.
Now, you described in your evidence just before the break that when you got into the lobby, you heard and I'm quoting you from the transcript from this morning, you said you heard a weird kind of low humming, strange sound. Was it a sound you'd heard before?
No. It was very strange. Again, as I say, all the senses, and that's what I felt. Opening the door, it felt very strange. Like when you are in a basement and you have a maybe boiler room, a kind of weird sensation of, which is hard to describe in words.
Yes. Was that sound you heard, this low, humming, strange sound, was it different from the sound that you'd heard being made by the vents on the previous occasions we
I think it
discussed
was
earlier?
similar. It just felt a little bit kind of lower frequency.
Right.
Again, it's difficult to put in words what
Yes.
it was, but that definitely, to me, I have heard something or have association, but I remember a weird, kind of strange, low, kind of humming sound as I was opened the door and then went through the
Yes.
lobby.
You described it as weird and strange. Does that mean it's a sound you'd never heard before that?
Yes, that's why I used it. Yes, I've never come across that kind of sound before, yes.
Right. Was it quieter in volume than the sound that you'd heard coming from the vents on the previous occasions you've mentioned?
I think so, yes.
Yes. Now, I just want to plot your route across the lobby, if I can. Can I ask you, please, to be shown, first of all, MET 00012593 at page 12. Now, this is a plan diagram of the tower at floor 4, as we can see, it's 16 on that diagram, and it's the same all the way up. So using this plan, you're in the west-facing flat. Can you just describe for us the route that you took across the lobby once you'd left your front door,
Yeah.
but before you got to the stairwell door?
So,
We could blow it up. We blow up
yeah.
perhaps the flat and the lobby as far as we can.
As it was, as I mentioned, was so dark, I used my hands. So I felt the wall on my right.
So we come out of your front
So
door.
I knew obviously I had to go straight and right. So I felt with my hand and came to the end, to the corner there, and made my way across to the other side and got to the other side of the wall, basically where the new kind of heating system was put up and was boxed in.
Right, now just pausing there, what you've described, can you point out the other side you've just referred to by reference to this plan?
So
Do by all means get up and indicate.
I would have gotten somewhere around here.
So you came out of your...
I came out here. made my way around here
Yes.
and then somehow across the whole way, because I knew that the fire door was here, so I just cut across here. And initially I came to about here and trying to open the door.
I see.
And then I figured out I had to go slightly more to the right to find the fire door.
I see. Okay. Now, what you describe in paragraph 68 of your statement, if we could just throw that up on the screen, is that you say, and I I managed to make my way round, let's just go down to paragraph 68. I managed to make my way round the landing, and thought I had reached the fire door, but I could not open it and thought it was locked. I then realised it was the wall and felt around a little further and finally found the fire door to the stairwell and pushed it open. Now, just focusing on that experience, you've shown us what you encountered at first on the far side of the wall opposite the lifts. Can we have a photograph, please, which is BLA quadruple 02514. Now, this is floor 6, so not your floor, but here we can see the 2 lifts, and then opposite the lifts, a cupboard with a blue circular plaque on it.
Yeah.
Can you help us? Was that what you're describing as the wall that you found originally,
Yes.
when you said that you thought the door was locked?
Yes, it is, yeah. I
Okay.
said wall, obviously it's the new box there.
It's the new cupboards?
Yes.
Okay. And were those cupboards put there as part of the refurbishment? Do you remember?
Yes.
They were. Now, in paragraph 68 of your statement, you say, as we've just seen, if we can just go back to that, you say in the third line, I finally found the fire door to the stairwell and pushed it open. When you did push it open, do you remember whether it was harder to push than usual?
It was quite easy to push open. There was no change from other times I used the stairwell.
Right. Did you feel any kind of pressure against the fire door as you pushed it open?
I don't think so, no.
Did you wait for your husband?
I opened the door, kept it open while I was waiting for him to join me in the stairwell.
How long did you have to wait for him?
It felt a long time, but
Yes.
it probably would have been 10, 15 minutes at most.
Minutes.
Sorry, seconds.
Right.
Yes.
And while you were holding the door open, did smoke come into the stairwell?
My recollection is there was already smoke in the stairwell when I opened the door.
Okay. So let's just take that in stages. When you opened the stairwell into the door into the stairwell, was the stairwell illuminated? Was it lit?
I don't remember really. It was, I think it probably was, but it was quite dark. To me, it felt dark, probably because of smoke in there already. I just remember the sensation of once I get to the stairwell and what I saw, that I saw, yes, this is probably serious and we really have to leave. It's not much of a visual recollection, it's more of emotional, what I felt and what I remember I felt as I opened the door.
Yes. Okay. Well, let me see how we go. At this time, you're wearing a towel over your head. Is that right?
No, I held it in front of my face.
Okay, so you could see.
Yes.
And-
Yes, I could see, yes.
Okay. And was the smoke in the stairwell when you pushed the door open thicker or thinner than the smoke that you'd come through
It was thinner.
in the lobby? It was thinner.
Yeah.
And were you able to breathe it without the assistance of the towel?
I recall that the breathing without a towel was very hard. There was still smoke, and it felt really difficult in the stairwell as well.
And you held the, I think as you say, you held the door open for your husband, and he came after 10 or 15 seconds. Did the door then close behind you? Both?
Yes.
It did. At that time, during your journey across the lobby, did you get any sense of what was going on with the other neighbours you had on your floor?
No.
Did your husband tell you anything about what they might have been doing?
As I said, I guess at the time, what was really on our mind, and especially when I opened the front door, it took us together 3 attempts to leave, and kind of feeling that disorientation and all the things happening quite quickly. Really, truly, honestly, I only thought about running and getting out, and I guess it's one of these things. You look back and think, what if?
Yeah.
I could have found the other's door and knock on them, and it's something we obviously have to deal with ourselves.
Yeah.
But no, we didn't see anybody or didn't come across anybody.
No, I understand. When you got into the stairwell, did you notice a change in the temperature?
I don't think I did notice much, no.
Okay. Did you notice any air movement in the stairwell?
No. I think, given that we really were, once we got there, and once I had the impression of that it's of utmost importance to really rush and run. I guess because we run, there was not much time to kind of notice many other kind of inputs or influences, so I don't remember.
As you came down the stairs, and you told us in detail earlier this morning the changes that you experienced, as one of the things that you saw, did you notice whether any doors to other floors were open off the stairwell into the lobbies?
The only door that I noticed that was open was the one I mentioned, where there were a few firemen with their hoses leading from the stairwell to the main lobby. That was the only door that I recall being opened.
And how did you come across anybody on your way down?
No.
No. Now, at paragraph 74 of your statement, just turning over the page, if we can, to page 11, you say, between the 6th to 4th floors, the smoke was really thick. I saw around 6 to 10 firefighters who'd opened the door to one of the floors and their hoses were running into the landing. I did not engage with these firefighters. How did you notice that it was the 6th floor where the smoke began to be really thick?
I think it was just a guess. I guess we were running, and it was difficult to keep tally, counting or seeing the numbers on the landings. I find it quite difficult previously even to notice. But because I used that stairwell a few times before, I'm sure it was definitely below 10th floor. And given that after we run through that really difficult black toxic smoke, we only had another 4 or 3 floors to go. So I would assume that's where we were.
I see. Did you notice, when you got to the 6th floor or so, any change in the temperature in the stairwell?
The whole atmosphere felt much, much worse. I think as we were coming down from about halfway down, it was getting more and more difficult, darker. The visibility was getting worse. And the smoke was definitely it filled the whole, basically I would say it filled the stairwell, where you couldn't really see much.
No. And when you say in paragraph 74 that the firefighters opened the door to one of the floors and their hoses were running into the landing, did you notice when you saw that whether smoke was coming out from that landing or lobby into the stairwell?
It did look like that, yes.
Now, at paragraph 77, you said that the CCTV has you coming out from the bottom of the stairwell at around 01:42. How long do you think it took you to get from your flat front door to that exit at 01:42?
I would say 5 minutes. Again, it's an estimate. I've used the stairwell mainly to go up when the lifts didn't work, a few times coming down,
Yeah.
but I would say 5 minutes.
And then you say in paragraph 79 of your statement on page 11, we eventually came out of the tower via the entrance on the east side of the building. Just so we're clear, that's the entrance, which is not the main lobby.
That's correct, yes. There's two entrances, the main pointing to the south of the building, and then on the east side. And given the way the stairwell is, it was easier to exit just taking a right from the stairwell to the exit on the east side. And I think we used it now and then when we were exiting the building going towards Portobello, rather than using the south exit. So we knew you could use it as well. It was easier to leave the building that way for us at the time. Yes.
Yes, I see. Did you need a fob to get into the building that way, or could you not get into the building that way at all?
When you were leaving.
When you were coming in.
When you were coming in, I would assume you would.
Did you ever use it to come in?
I didn't use it to come in that way, no.
Okay. Was there anybody at the foot of the stairs telling you where to go or what to do?
At the time we were leaving, no, there was nobody pointing us. No.
Now, at paragraph 82 on page 12 of your statement, you describe that you're outside and you say, "My throat was burning from the smoke inhalation and my eyes were sore. I could see my husband was coughing and bringing up what looked like black soot. We were in utter disbelief about what had happened to us." Was your husband treated by the ambulance or paramedics at the scene?
We were first treated by ambulance. We were by the sports center, by the site. We were there for a little bit, and then we were taken to a hospital for a checkup. I think we arrived there about 4:30 in the morning.
Right.
So we were checked, yes.
You were checked. Where were the people who first checked you and your husband first? Where were they based?
Well, we first made our way up Grenfell Road, and we were taken in by a lady that lived nearby. She took us in her place, and we had some time there to calm down, use the bathroom, have a cup of tea, really, and then that could have been 30 minutes. Then when we made our way out again, we were pointed towards the sports center. That's where the ambulances and paramedics were. That's where we were first seen. And we stayed there for a while, yes, sitting there, and we saw a few other people being brought there.
Yes. Okay. Did you experience any difficulty on the night in getting treatment?
No.
At page 13 of your statement, you say in paragraph 89, at the top of the page, "Around this time I recognised Nick Burton and his wife Pilly from the tower. They were also being treated in the paramedics area, and they were not in a good way." And then you go on to say in paragraph 90, "Nick was struggling to breathe and was given oxygen. Pilly was brought over by 2 firemen and she was in a state. She kept saying she wanted to go home. They were taken to hospital in separate ambulances." Did you yourself witness them being taken separately?
Yes.
You did. Do you know why they were taken separately?
I don't know why. I mean, we saw Nick first came, and he was treated. He had difficulty breathing, and then his wife was brought by 2 firemen, I believe, or paramedics, and was given treatment as well. And I just recall them being taken separately.
Yeah.
in separate ambulances.
Yes. Ms. Doulova, thank you very much for all of those answers. I've come to the end of my questions for the time being. Mr. Chairman, I wonder whether now might be an appropriate moment to take a short break, just to make sure that there's nothing
Yes.
I've missed or others might want to suggest.
Yes, of course. Well, as you hear, Mr. Millett thinks he's got to the end of his questions, but on reflection, it sometimes happens that he hasn't. And so we're going to have a short break now. Is 11:45 going to give you long
Yes.
enough, or do you need a little longer?
The 11:45 should do it. If we need longer, Mr. Chairman, we can always
You
ask.
can send a message.
We can always send a message.
Right, so we'll break now until 11:45. Same rules applied. Please don't speak to anyone about your evidence. And then we'll come back and see whether he has more questions for you.
Okay.
All right?
Thank you.
Good. I'd like to give the usher, please. Well, Mr. Millett, I'll say 11:45, but if it turns out that you need a bit more time, just let me know.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you.
All right? Thank you.
Very good.
11:45, thank you. Yes, Mr. Millett, some more questions?
There are one or two more questions,
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, in the usual way.
Right, I think a few more questions, but not perhaps too many. Yes, Mr. Millett?
Ms. Doulova, thank you very much for coming back to us. Can I just ask you one or two further questions? The first is that if you'd look please at paragraph 29 of your statement on page 5, can I just pick up something with you there? You say, I would only use the stairwell if the lifts were not working. The lighting was poor, so it was difficult to see the floor numbers. Were there difficulties with the floor numbers themselves? Do you remember?
I think after the refurbishment, I think a few people had problems. Obviously, the numbers have changed. We were initially 17th floor, and now we were 20th floor. And I actually used the stairwell a few weeks before the fire, when the lifts weren't working. I remember that was in the evening, came from work, and didn't want to wait for the lifts. So decided to use the stairwell. And I remember it was quite dark in there. I think the lights in some of the floors were not working. And I actually had to leave the stairwell to go into a floor to see what the numbers were on the floor to know where I was.
Were the numbers visible to you?
I didn't see numbers in some floors. And I don't know whether it was because the lighting wasn't working or because it was badly painted, but I struggled to see some of the numbers.
Right. Thank you. Now, you say in your statement, and as you told us this morning, that when you did come out, you came out of the door on the east side of the tower. And that, just to be clear, is the door that would be at the foot of the stairs on the ground floor to your right as you came down the stairs.
Yes.
That's right.
That's correct, yes.
And we can look at a photograph if we need to, but that's right.
No, that's correct, yeah, taken right from there to the east exit.
Okay.
Yeah.
So just so that I'm clear, there was nobody there, was there, saying, don't come out this way?
There was nobody there. We didn't meet anybody. There was actually nobody there when we got outside either.
Right.
Only as we were making our way away from the building, there were people trying to organize.
Okay. Now, if you look at paragraph 79 of your statement, please, on page 11, it's page 11. Foot of the page, you say, we eventually came out of the tower via the entrance on the east side of the building. I was suddenly aware of burning debris falling from above. When you came out, what quantity of burning debris was falling?
Well, my husband was coming first, and in a sense, he nearly got hit by the debris. I mean, he had to make a step back, and there was quite a lot happening. I remember we were really tight against the side of the building. I mean, we didn't quite know, because we didn't see yet what was happening from the outside. So we very carefully made our way really close to the side of the building, and luckily we didn't get hurt, but it definitely nearly got my husband, yes.
Right. How near to the east door did you see burning debris falling?
It seemed quite close. It seemed close so that we were quite afraid to be hit.
Yes. Yeah, thank you. I have just one final question, Ms. Doulova. In addition to what you've put in your written witness statement, and in addition to what you've told us this morning, is there anything that you'd wish to tell the chairman about what you saw, or heard, or felt, or smelt on the night, that you observed on the night, that you think it's important for the chairman to know?
I think at this time I don't feel I have anything extra. I think we've covered a lot of what happened on the night. Maybe just mention that, being here and thinking about what happened and the impact, how important it is. And I know that the inquiry will answer some of these questions in the second stages of the wider issues and topics, but to kind of make sure that, especially when it comes to the building regulation and health and safety and fire safety, there are some clear lines of responsibility and compliance and checks so that this doesn't happen again, and the lives of the 72 people and the families and us who survived are not in that way, that real change take place.
Ms. Doulova, thank you very much. can I thank you for coming here and assisting us today with our inquiries. We really do very much appreciate it. So thank you.
Yes, I'd like to add my thanks to those of Mr. Millett. As I'm sure you understand, we need to understand what was going on in the tower at various levels, at various times, what the smoke was like and so on. And we can only get that from people like you who are prepared to come along and explain to us what you experienced. So your evidence is very helpful to us, and I'm very grateful to you for coming along to give it. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, so now if you'd like to go with the usher, she'll look after you. All right? Good. Thank you very much. Yes, Mr. Millett.
Well, Mr. Chairman, we've got some further statements to be read
Some
into
reading,
the record.
yes.
And I'm going to hand over now to Mr. Rawat to do that, to take that on, if I may.
Thank you very much. Yes, Mr. Rowan. When you're ready, no rush.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We'd like at this point to put into the record 6 statements. I will, as I go through them, be reading extracts from the statements themselves, but if I can make this point, and which applies to all 6 statements, it is that the statements in their entirety will be published and will go into the record in their entirety, yes, and be considered as evidence before the inquiry in that way. The first statement I would like to put into the record is that of Emma O'Connor, of flat 171 on the 20th floor. The statement references IWS 50121. There are no exhibits to go with the statement, but it is an 8-page statement, and if we go to the 8th page, it's signed on that page with a statement of truth dated the 17th of May 2018. And if I could just, before I go to parts of the statement themselves, just give a little background, and that is that Miss O'Connor lived in flat 171 with her partner and carer, Luke Towner. They had a joint tenancy with the local authority, had lived in the tower for some 5 years by June 2017. Miss O'Connor herself is disabled, and she requires assistance with walking, and she has walked with crutches for around 5 years now. If I could go to paragraph 24, Mr. Chairman, and that's on page 5 of the statement. And if I read from there, that's the part of the statement that deals with Miss O'Connor's account of the night.
Yes.
On 13th of June 2017, Luke and I were at home during the day, as it's difficult for me to get out of the house and travel around due to my disabilities. We had a takeaway meal at home that evening, and I remember watching television until just after midnight. We both went to bed and weren't in it for that long when we heard the sirens from fire engines. Luke got out of bed to check what was going on, and he told me that he could see there was a fire in a flat near the bottom of the tower. He was looking out of the kitchen window and could see the fire in a reflection on the wall of the academy, which was directly opposite our kitchen window. I got out of bed to see what was going on as well. I couldn't see the fire from the bedroom window, but I could see fire engines. I went to the kitchen and looked out of the kitchen window, and that's when I saw the fire. After a few minutes, we both noticed that the fire appeared to be getting bigger. We also noticed that the 4th fire engine arrived. At that point, I heard a fire alarm. I'm not sure where it was coming from, but it was definitely closer than the 4th floor. At that moment, I decided I needed to get out of the building. I was conscious that if the fire spread, I wouldn't be able to walk down 20 stories to the ground floor, and that the lifts would not be working. When we left the flat, I took my mobile phone and flip-flops. Luke didn't take his phone, and I didn't take my crutches. We were both expecting to return to the flat shortly. There was no smoke in the flat when we left, but when we got onto the 20th floor landing, we noticed smoke coming up through the vents. It did not feel unusually hot in our flat or on the 20th floor landing, though it was a very warm evening, so it's difficult to say for sure. We called the lift. I remember that one of the lifts was out of order that night. Luckily, the one that was working arrived quite quickly. There was no smoke in the lift. It was empty when it arrived. We got in and pressed the button for the ground floor. On the way down, the lift stopped on the 11th floor, where two women wearing headscarves got in. When the lift doors opened on the 11th floor, I could see a bit of smoke on the 11th floor landing. The smoke was not so thick that I couldn't see through it, but it was definitely smokier than it had been on the 20th floor. The women who got into the lift looked a bit worried, but not truly frightened. They were speaking in their own language. We didn't speak with them. The lift then stopped on the 3rd floor, where we could see a woman running around on the landing, shouting fire, trying to alert people to get out of the tower. She didn't get into the lift. The 3rd floor didn't seem smoky at all, but we could see members of the fire brigade with their hoses. At this stage, I was not yet concerned. When we arrived on the ground floor, it was 1:19 a.m. I know the exact time because I sent a text as soon as we got to the ground. It was not smoky on the ground floor, but the vents were making very loud noises as though they were working overtime. And that's where I'll stop with that statement, Mr. Chairman. And if I could go to the second statement.
Yes, thank you.
And that is the witness statement of Mr. Virgilio Castro. The reference is IWS 401091, and the statement incorporates 3 exhibits labelled VC1, VC2, and VC3, and these are 2 floor plans and then a diagram of the tower from the outside. The statement has 9 pages to it, and if we go to the 9th page, please. It's dated the 20th of September 2018 and signed with a statement of truth. In summary, in the statement, Mr. Castro explains that he'd lived in the tower for 26 years as of June 2017. At the time of the fire, he was living in the property with his friend Gennaro. His daughter would also stay with him on Friday and Saturday nights. And on that night, his girlfriend was also staying with him. If I could go, please, to paragraphs 34, which is at page 6 of the statement. I pick it up from there. I was woken up suddenly at about 1:15 a.m. I heard the sound of my smoke alarms in my flat. The alarms are linked together and so would usually both go off at the same time, and they both did that night. My girlfriend Elisa was shouting fire, fire, fire. My friend Gennaro was also in our room trying to wake me and Elisa up. Gennaro said to me, fire. He was shouting. He looked shocked. He then ran off. He left the flat straight away wearing only his boxer shorts, no slippers or footwear. I went to the hallway, and from there I could see into the kitchen and could see the fire there. The fire was outside the kitchen window. The window was closed. I could hear a very loud, strange sound like a woo. The fire was red and around the middle of the window on the outside. I didn't understand why it was making that sound. I went into the kitchen. As I mentioned above, we have a circular ventilation fan in the top right of the kitchen window, and I could see flames coming through this ventilation fan into the kitchen. I was confused, and in a panic, I wanted to try and kill the fire, but I quickly realized I couldn't do anything. There was a strong smell of smoke in my flat, but I was not coughing at this point. I have been shown the smoke and fire descriptors provided to me by the Grenfell Tower Inquiry, and I would estimate the smoke looked like image B. The fire coming in through the window was like image E, but as if that was cut in half along the middle of the vertical height of the flames. Me and Alyssa ran out of the flat. I got to just outside my front door and then decided to try and grab my personal possessions and those which belonged to my late wife and my daughter. For example, watches, rings, necklaces, and money. But Alyssa grabbed me and told me this was not important. When I left the flat, I wasn't carrying anything. I was only wearing my fossil watch on my left wrist. The two of us then ran out of the flat. The door to the flat had been left open by Gennaro, who'd left earlier. As I said above, the door would only close to about a 45-degree angle on its own and then remain open. I didn't shut my front door when we left. We left in a panic because of the fire in our flat. There was some smoke in the landing outside my front door. I've looked at the smoke descriptors and would say that the smoke was kind of in between image B and C. It was black smoke. I could smell the smoke more now and could taste it in my mouth, and I started to cough. If I go forward to paragraph 41, please. Alyssa was in front of me, and we went straight to the stairwell. I had used the stairs in the past when the lift was broken, so I knew where they were. The landing lights were working okay, and there were no other people on the landing. However, when I got to the stairwell, it was completely dark. I couldn't see my feet, and I couldn't see Alyssa. It was dark all the way down to the bottom of the stairs. Once we were in the stairwell, I realized that most people were coming down the stairs, but some people were coming back up. I don't know if there were any firefighters in the stairwell. It was dark, so I couldn't see. I was going to follow the people going up the stairs until my neighbor, who lives in the flat directly above mine, flat 156 on the 18th floor, shouted at me not to go upstairs, but to go downstairs instead. He kept shouting, "No, go down." So we all ran down the stairs. I also thought to myself that the roof door was usually locked, so we shouldn't go upstairs. There's a reference to the neighbour, which is redacted, but the statement continues in relation to the neighbour. I have known him for a long time, but didn't know his full name until after the fire. He approached me after the fire to apologise to him for shouting at me that night. I now know his name is Shah Ahmed. All the way down, whenever we saw people running up the stairs, we stopped them and told them to turn around and go back down the stairs or they would be trapped. There was thick black smoke in the stairwell on the way down, but it seemed to clear after we got below around the 4th or 5th floors. Once we reached the ground floor, I ran out of the stairwell and the lights were on in the mezzanine and ground floor lobby area. Everyone was just running out. I ran straight out of the building. And Mr. Chairman, if I stop there, but I just, for the record, make clear that Mr. Castro lived in flat 146 on the 17th floor, and his exit time was 1:31 in the morning.
Right, thank you.
The next statement to put into the record is the statement of Mesrob Kasemjian, and he lived in flat 141 on the 17th floor. His exit time on the night is recorded as 1:26 a.m. The inquiry statement is found at IWS 50951, and accompanying it and to put into the record is one exhibit, IWS 50950, marked as MK1, and that is a floor plan. The statement has 15 pages, and if we go please to the 15th page, we see that it's dated the 13th of July 2018 and signed with a statement of truth. Before I begin reading some parts of this statement, again by way of background, explain that Mr. Kasemjian had lived in Grenfell Tower for 8 years as of June 2017. He was living with his aunt, Rita Tankarian, who had limited mobility due to long-standing health problems, and she had lived in the flat for 15 years. Also living there at the time was Mr. Kasemjan's girlfriend, and all three of them were present on the night of the fire. I'd like to read some parts of the statement in which are Mr. Kasemjan's account of that night, and if I take it from page 6, please, and paragraph 20. On the night of the fire, my girlfriend Fung and I were watching a movie in the living room. My aunt had already gone to bed. We heard fire sirens outside, and I looked out the windows of the living room and then the kitchen and saw fire engines near the bottom of the tower, and I realized that they were underneath us. We went back to what we were doing, but not long afterwards we looked out again and saw there were more fire engines. It was about 1, I think. My girlfriend and I started to get a little worried, so we decided to look on the stairwell to see what was happening. I opened the front door to the stairs and we stepped into the communal area outside my front door. The statement then continues, we stood by the lifts. I couldn't see anyone or hear anyone. There was nothing. I could already smell smoke though, and there was this dull humming sound. Fung decided to open the door to the stairwell to look down the stairs. She walked down the stairwell and walked down a few floors. She came back up to where I was standing, and she said that she didn't hear anyone or see anyone, except for a woman who was wearing a headscarf and was with her daughter. She told me that they both looked worried. My girlfriend told me that she'd asked the woman what was wrong, and the woman said that she was scared because she could smell smoke, and so she was evacuating. Fung is convinced now that she went all the way down to the bottom of the stairs. However, I don't think she could have done, as she was only gone for about 90 seconds. We went back inside the flat. I felt more worried. I decided to look out of the window again. I opened the window and really reached my head out the living room. It was difficult to see down, even more so than it would have been before the refurbishment because of the cladding around the window. As I looked down, I realized that there was a glow coming from the building below, and I could see firefighters standing at the bottom of the tower. I saw them direct water at the glow, and then it looked like the glow exploded, and that's when I felt the heat rising up the tower. I realized immediately that we needed to leave the building, and I said so to Fung. I told Fung that we had 1 minute to leave the tower. The heat that came from outside was extremely hot. It felt like a slap in the face. From this moment, I went into a kind of fight or flight mode. After seeing the fire outside and feeling that heat, I thought it was possible that the fire could spread and reach our flat. That's why I decided we had to leave. I wanted to get out before it was too late. I was worried about people using the stairwell at the same time, and I was worried about Rita getting down the stairs. This was not like the fire in Grenfell Tower before. I went and woke up Rita, who was sleeping. I told her that the tower was on fire and that we had to leave. She responded very quickly. She jumped out of bed and was almost ready to leave when we reached the front door. If I hadn't woken Rita up then, I don't think she would have woken up at all. We had a smoke alarm in our flat, but it didn't go off. There was not enough smoke in our flat for it to go off. The three of us left the flat within about a minute of deciding we had to get out. I took with me only my front door keys, my phone, my wallet, and my cigarettes. I thought that we would return that night, but I thought it was going to be a long night until we did. I picked up my laptop, but then I decided against taking it, as I thought to myself, where does it end in terms of what to take and what to leave? I thought that it was best to leave immediately. From that moment, I was almost certain that there was a good chance the fire could reach our floor, and even if it didn't come inside the house, it would have been terrifying. I was hoping that it wouldn't come to that, but I thought there was a good chance and that we have to go. When I first opened the door to the flat, I couldn't see any smoke, but I could smell it. We could hear the vents making a noise. I think that they were smoke vents and they were on, making a lot of noise. Rita still remembers that noise especially. Fung said that we should knock on the neighbours' doors, but I said no because I was worried that if everyone came now and pushed Rita, then she might fall. I thought that we needed to make sure that we were careful because there might have been pandemonium. I wanted us to leave quickly in order to go down the stairs carefully. Rita moves very slowly. I was expecting an integrated fire alarm to ring at any moment and that everyone would come rushing out down the stairs. If someone shoved Rita and she fell, then she might not be able to walk again. Also, on the other hand, I didn't think that the entire building would actually go ablaze, and so I didn't want to worry people at the time if it was for nothing. I thought it was best to get out quickly just in case the worst happened. We lived on the 17th floor, and I thought that to get down all of those stairs and to move past the floor which was on fire would be very risky, and we needed to leave as soon as possible, whilst the exit was still an option for us. Rita said to me, "What about Khadija?" And so I said that I would go and get her. Khadija lived on the 17th floor with her husband. Fung and Rita started going down the stairs. I hit on Khadija's front door as hard as I could and shouted. I knocked very loudly and shouted at the top of my voice. Everyone on the floor would have heard me. After a while, Khadija opened the door and I said in no uncertain terms, "There is a fire, you must leave right now." She turned around to go and get her husband. The door closed, and that was the last time I saw her. If I move to the next paragraph, please. I started to go down the stairs. I rarely used the stairs at night because the stairwell was very dirty and there were crack addicts there sometimes. I did think about using the lift and I pressed the button to call it when we began to leave. The lift was still working at about 1:10. All the lights were on. I asked Rita and Fung whether we should use it and they both said no. When we came out and went to the stairs, the fire doors were shut, but each of the fire doors were shut except the 4th floor. By the time I started to go down the stairs, Fung and Rita were 2 flights of stairs ahead. That was because I had told them to go ahead and make a start when I was banging on Khadija's door. When we were leaving our house, I could hear people upstairs crying. Fung said that we should go back and get them, but I said no. We made a choice and we were running down the stairs. I told Fung to hold on to Rita's hand and help me to get Rita out the tower. I knew that if we were separated from one another, then we might not find each other again. If we had gone back then, it would have been difficult to get Rita out. On the 17th floor, there was no visible smoke. At around the 14th floor in the stairwell, the smoke started. It was white, and it was getting stronger and thicker as we went further down. We were walking into it, and I knew that it was going to get stronger and that it would continue getting worse the further we went. I was worried that I was taking the 2 of them to their death. I didn't know if there was a way out. Rita was going slowly, 1 step, 2 steps at a time. She was holding the rails on one side and onto Fung on the other. On about the 8th floor, Rita started coughing. As we progressed, the smoke got thicker still. On the 4th floor, the smoke was even thicker and greyer. Still, it was not so thick that you couldn't see through it, but it was a complete mist. As we were going down, we could hear people. When we left, it was still quiet, but when we got to about the 14th floor, we could already start to hear people screaming fire. The stairwell was not yet busy. I think people were packing bags and stuff. I think that every stage I could still see the bottom of the stairs. It smelled like a bonfire. By the 8th floor we were engulfed, but it was still possible to see. I remember once I was in Hyde Park and was surrounded by thick grey mist. It was like that. I'm sure I could have seen the ceiling had I looked up, or the handrail. At the 6th floor I saw a fireman coming up the stairs. They were getting a hose. I can't remember if the hose was coming out of the 4th floor or going into the 4th floor. We carried on down. I saw that they'd left the door open on the 4th floor, and that was where the smoke was coming from. The hose was stopping the door from completely shutting. When I saw them, I said, "Is there a way out?" They didn't have oxygen masks. They were wearing protective clothing, but no oxygen masks. I thought that was odd. A firefighter said yes and told Rita to be calm. Fung said later that he looked at us as though we were being silly or dramatic. We carried on down the stairs, and at the bottom there was a lady who was telling people to use one door rather than the other to shield people from falling cladding. The woman who said this was Florentina, who's the daughter of Michael and Elizabeth, who live in the tower. On the 6th floor was the only time I heard any kind of alarm. It was a normal smoke alarm that was on the 4th floor. We heard it properly when we were on the 4th floor. We saw a Filipino guy coming down the stairs. He lived on the 17th floor. I think he must have heard me knocking on Khadijah's door. He was following us on the stairs and was a couple of floors behind us. Also behind us was an older man who was black and who was walking slowly behind Rita. I can't describe what he looked like beyond this. The lights were working on the stairs while we were there. There were no blocks on the landing or anything. The stairwell was very dirty. It was really very disgusting. When I went in there in the past, I would try to touch nothing. There were no rubbish sacks. It was clear, but not clean. On the W floor, the 1st floor, we went the wrong way. At the bottom, we thought that we could get out into Grenfell Walk. There was a door that leads directly out that way, but the door had been closed for a long time, months or maybe even a year. I thought at the time that the door may have been open because I saw a hose coming from that way, and I saw a firefighter come from the direction of the door. The door was shut, though. There were 3 people or so that I saw. On the W floor, I think there was one firefighter doing things, but I couldn't see any water. It seemed like they were moving the hose between floors. Although I couldn't see the water, I think the hoses were swollen, and I think that was because there was water coming through. Rita remembers tripping on the hose. When we got to the ground floor, Rita was coughing. We left the tower through the main entrance. On our way out of the building, we saw a woman whose face was covered in soot. She was frantic and screaming. It looked like she'd faced the fire. There were people who were trying to hold her back from going back inside. Mr. Chairman, if I stop there, and if I could then go to the next statement.
Thank you very much, yes.
And that is the statement of Rita Tankarian, flat 141, floor 17,
Yes.
exit time of 1:26. The reference is IWS 50434. There are no exhibits accompanying the statement. It is a 9-page statement, and if we go to the 9th page, please. The statement is signed and with a statement of truth and dated the 24th of May 2018. As will be clear from the previous statement, Mr. Chairman, Ms. Tankarian was the aunt of Mesrob Kasemjin, whom she refers to in her statement as Robbie, and she says in the statement that on the night of the fire she went to bed at around 10:30 that night. And if I pick it up, please, from paragraph 12 on page 3.
Yes, thank you.
I was sleeping when suddenly Robbie came into my bedroom and woke me up. He said, "Auntie, wake up. We have 1 minute to leave the flat because the whole building's on fire." Robbie is very clear-minded and practical about things. I knew immediately that he was serious and that we were in danger. Straight away, I jumped from the bed. This was a very bad thing for me to do because of my back problems. I knew that I should not make any sudden movements, but the urgency of the situation meant that I had to do this. Robbie has said he's never seen me move so quickly in my life. Since then, my back problems have worsened. I was scared and knew we were in a dangerous situation, but I did not think that we were not going to come back to the flat. If I'd realized that I would at least have bought my handbag and would have opened the wardrobe and taken out my jewelry. Robbie's very decisive. He was clear-minded, and I think that saved us. Robbie saved my life. I'd taken various tablets that evening, and these made me sleep very deeply. If Robbie had not woken me up, then I would never have woken up myself. There was no smoke or sign of danger inside our flat. Inside the flat, everything was still completely normal at that stage. In the flat, there was no sign of fire. I could not smell any burning or see any smoke. As soon as we walked out of the front door to our flat, I remember looking at the lifts and saw that both were out of order, and in the hallway, smoke was coming from every direction. That night, Robbie's girlfriend, Fung, was also staying with us. There was no sign of the fire inside our flat before we left, but as soon as I walked out of our front door into the lift area, I could immediately smell the fire. From every corner when we opened the flat door, the smoke was there. We could smell it. The smoke smelt like burning plastic, but it was not hot. There was no alarm going off. I walked towards the stairs. On the way out of my flat, I said to Robbie that we should knock on the door to our neighbours and friends' flats, Khadija and Saba. I went to Khadija's flat and rang the bell, but she didn't answer. Robbie told me that I should go down the stairs. I started to walk towards the stairs with Fung, and Robbie started to bang on the door to flat 143, which was Khadija's flat. Khadija opened the door, and Robbie told her that there was a fire and that they should leave. When Robbie did that, I think he also banged on the door to flat 142 and then turned and joined us. Khadija went back into her flat to wake Saba. With my walking problems, it would have been easier to take the lift, but when I looked, both of them were out of service. While Robbie was banging on the doors to warn people, I crossed the landing area from my flat and started going down the stairs with Fung. In my 14 years in the tower, I had only ever used the stairs once before. It was on an occasion when there was no lift working. It was hard for me to walk because my back is bad and I have spinal problems. The walk downstairs was slow and exhausting. It took me a long time to walk down. Fung stood near me the whole time, supporting me as I walked. Robbie caught up with us quite quickly and walked behind. We had only come down about 10 stairs by the time he reached us. As we started to come down, the smoke was getting thicker and thicker on the stairs. The smoke was white and grey, as if it was foggy. It smelt of burning plastic as in the hallway. As we came down the stairs, we didn't hear any fire alarms. The only thing I could hear was a low humming noise. I have no idea what was causing it and had never heard it before. Getting out of the tower was terrifying. Smoke was on the stairs from the moment we entered the stairway and was always there as we continued walking down the stairs. The further down we went, the more smoke there was, but we were always able to see where we were going. There was lighting the whole way down. I found it hard to walk and needed support to get down. The smoke continued to get worse. I was in pain and my legs were hurting, but I knew I had to get out. At the beginning, it was fine to see through the smoke, but later, as we went further down, it became more and more hazy. When we were on the 6th floor, the smoke started increasing a lot. It was a grey-white colour, and I remember Robbie cried out to me, "Don't breathe, Auntie, cover your mouth." I was really anxious. My breathing was getting more and more difficult. I was breathing very quickly, but only shallow breaths. On the way down, Fung was always next to me and Robbie was behind. In the pictures that the police have shown us, Robbie was behind me and I was holding on to Fung on one side and the handrail on the other. It was only when we reached the 4th floor that I saw a firefighter with a hose. We had to step over the hose to carry on down the stairs. I remember Robbie told the fireman, "We're already here and I know my way," so we carried on without further help. It is good that the firefighter didn't tell us to go back, as I believe others were told to go back upstairs. But even if we'd been told to leave, we would not have gone back. I know that I saw the fire hose when we were at the 4th floor, because after that, below that, the style of the building changes. There were 3 floors further down to go, and it was hard to walk. On the 4th floor, I also saw a lady that I knew from the building that I always saw. She was standing in front of one of the doors. I don't remember seeing anyone else on the stairs on the way down, and it was only me, Robbie and Fung walking down the stairs. All the way down, I was scared of falling, especially because of my back. I was so anxious coming down. It was terrifying. At the bottom of the stairs, there were 2 exit doors. I don't remember which one we came out of. I just remember Robbie guiding me about which one to use. We left the building at around 1:20 a.m. And that's where I'll stop, Mr. Chairman.
Yes. Thank you.
Our next statement to be read in is that of Corinne Simone Jones. The statement references IWS 6033. It is accompanied by three exhibits, which are firstly IWS 6035, and these are marked floor plans. And then we don't need to put these up, but it's IWS 6032 and IWS 6034, which are photographs taken on the night and outside the tower. If we go, please, to the last page of this statement, which is page 14. The statement is signed and dated the 10th of April 2018, and on the preceding page there is a statement of truth. If I summarise first, Miss Jones lived in flat 145, which was on the 17th floor, with her partner Jason Miller and their two sons. The family had moved into Grenfell Tower in July 2016. On the night of the fire, Mr. Miller was away from home, but Miss Jones was there at home with their boys. And the boys went to bed at around 8:30 p.m. and Miss Jones at about midnight. And if I pick it up, please, then at page 5, from paragraph, if we have from paragraph 16 on page 5, please. That night, Jason was staying with his mum. I sent him a text message to say, "Don't forget, I'll be leaving the house at 8:30 a.m. and to remind him to take the boys to school." I fell asleep at around midnight before I saw his reply. The next thing I remember is waking up to the smell of burning plastic. In that bedroom, I usually wake up during the night and I often feel uneasy. I used to worry about the building collapsing after watching the Twin Towers collapse on 9/11 live on the news. The towers reminded me of our building. That night, I can't say what woke me up, but I thought it smelled like someone was burning plastic in my room. It was very strong. My bedroom door was open, and I lifted my head to look out into the corridor to see if everything was okay. Everything seemed all right. I was awake for only seconds, I think, before going back to sleep. I don't know what time this was. I'm also not sure how much later it was. It could have been 5-10 minutes, but I woke up to my son coming into my room. He walked around to the window side of the bed where I slept and said, "Mum, I think there's a fire." I didn't say anything. I got straight up and went to the window that has blinds and pulled them back. On the right-hand side of the building, I could see bright lights and glowing embers flying past, and also black soot/dust. They were relatively small particles. I would say the light was orangey in colour. It looked like lights from a fire. I could not hear anything at this point. The smell of intense burning plastic continued. It had not got any worse. It was the same smell as earlier. At this point, I hadn't turned on any lights in my bedroom. In my head, I was thinking, this has to be a fire. My worst nightmare is actually coming to life, and I'm on the 17th floor right now. I stood at the window for 2 to 3 seconds, enough to confirm that I was seeing something abnormal. I was scared, worried, and confused as to what exactly was going on. But I knew one thing, and that was to escape the building as quickly as possible. I did not want to panic my son or show him how I was really feeling. I had to be strong so he would not panic. I said to, and the name of Miss Jones's son is then given, "We're leaving. Wake up your brother, get some clothes on." I went to my bedroom to put on some trousers, skinny jeans, they were inside out. I struggled to put them on. I saw my work clothes hanging up for the next day, so I put them on instead. I then went out of my bedroom to the boys' room, which is next to mine. I went into their room, and there's now the reference to Miss Jones's other son, was standing by the wardrobe nearer the door, getting clothes to put on. And she then refers to her first son, who was doing the same by his wardrobe on the other side of the room. I told him to hurry up, and we walked past my room to the shoe rack by the front door. We put on our shoes, and as we were doing this, I could hear voices outside which sounded like other residents. The tone sounded panicked. People spoke quickly and loudly and in a higher pitch. The communal area was normally very quiet, especially at night. I didn't recognize these voices, and I didn't catch what they were saying. The boys put on their school shoes. I opened the cupboard next to the master bedroom. There's a coat rack on the back of the door, and so I grabbed some jackets which were hanging up. Then I opened the front door, and a plume of smoke came into the flat and set off the fire alarm in the hallway opposite the front door. This is the first time I hear the alarm. When this happened, I thought fire, and I told the children to run to the fire exit where the stairs are, because I thought that was the safest place, and I was now concerned. As I came out the front door, I saw my neighbour standing outside his front door of flat 146. His name is Castro. I would say he is in his 50s. I did not say anything to him. I saw black smoke coming from the top of his door, which I believe was coming out of his flat into the communal area. I did not see smoke coming from anywhere else in the communal area. When I first came out my flat, there was not that much smoke, but I could see it moving along the top of the ceiling. There was not that much height between the top of his door and the ceiling. It was very thick, dense black smoke. I remember breathing it in and thinking I would not be able to breathe this in for much longer. It felt like there were particles in the smoke. It smelt like normal smoke, not like burning plastic as such. I ran back into my flat and got my handbag from next to the sofa in the front room. Not sure if I left my front door open. The children had already gone through the fire door to the stairwell. This took me about 4 seconds maximum. When I returned to the communal area, I can only describe a massive difference from the time I first opened my door. The smoke had quadrupled and had covered most of the ceiling and was now just above my head. I am 5'4". It reminded me of smoke machines on stage. The area had become much darker at this point. There were normal lights on, but it was darker due to the smoke. I came out of my flat, crossed the communal area to the stairwell, opened the fire door, and the boys were waiting for me there. I do not recall seeing smoke on the stairs. I could smell burning plastic on the stairwell, and the lights were on in the stair area. As I came onto the landing, I remember seeing some people standing in the middle of the stairs on the flight going up. I would say maybe 4 people were standing there. Muslim women, at least one wearing a hijab. I said, "Where is the fire? Where is the fire?" No one answered me. At this point, there seemed to be a lot of confusion. People were coming past me as I was on the landing. There were maybe 10, 12 people going up the stairs, and some people were going down. It seemed that the people going up the stairs all knew each other and were speaking to the group of women still standing on the stairs. Some people were just staying on the landing area talking. I was pausing there for a second, trying to get a better idea of what was going on so I could decide what to do. This was probably only for about 5 seconds. It didn't seem that anyone had answers. Everyone seemed panicked and didn't know what to do or where to go. The people that were going upstairs were questioning and panicking. The people who were standing on the stairs were deciding whether to go up or down. I can't say I recognized anyone. I didn't understand what people were saying. They were speaking their own language. From their body language and tone, I could tell they were confused and not sure where to go. Nobody was shouting, but everyone had raised voices. I can't remember if anyone was crying at this point. I thought, no one is listening to me. I'm going down the stairs. I said to the boys, let's go downstairs now. I had 5 or 6 jackets in my hand, including my sister's big winter jacket, and my handbag in the same hand, quite a large bag. I was wearing my work clothes and black trainers and a pink headscarf that I wear to sleep in. My youngest son was wearing shorts and a vest. He had not put his top on yet. He had 1 shoe on. Both boys were in front of me, and my neighbour Castro was also ahead of us as we went down the stairs. There was no one else going down at the same time as us. There were 2 flights of stairs per floor. It was bright in the stairwell, the walls were white. I don't remember seeing any smoke. The stair area smelt strongly of plastic. As I went down the stairs, I was thinking, I don't want to black out, and I told the children to cover their noses with their tops. At each floor, we didn't stop, we just kept going down. I don't think anyone overtook us. We were going very fast, running down the stairs, sometimes 2 at a time. I'm used to doing this with the boys because the lifts are often out of order. So we would often run down the stairs when going to school. We used to try and beat the lift. About halfway down, I picked up my youngest son and carried him to fasten the pace. It was quite fluid as we went down the stairs. There was nothing in the way to stop us. Between the 5th and the 3rd floor, I saw more people. I saw an old man, Middle Eastern, late 60s, early 70s. I think he was wearing a jacket, trousers, who was struggling with walking and was holding onto the handrail. And a younger man, late 30s, light-coloured skin, was supporting the old man's other side, helping him go down the stairs. Between these floors, it was a lot busier. Apart from the initial group of people, I didn't see anyone else going up the stairs. In the lower area, it was much more congested on the stairs. I didn't see any firefighters on the stairs, and I don't remember hearing any fire alarms. At that time, the only fire alarms that would have been going off were in people's flats. There were no alarms in the communal areas or on the stairs. When we got to the mezzanine area, you have to walk along the landing to go down the stairs. You can't get out from the mezzanine area and have to go down 2 flights of stairs to get to the ground floor. There were more people, but we're still able to move at the same pace. I don't remember seeing anyone, and I can't remember where our neighbour went. The boys were in front of me. There's a reference to the name of one son was at the front, and I was still carrying, and this is a reference to Miss Jones's second son. She then says that she put him down as we got to the mezzanine area and got out my phone to try and call Jason. I couldn't think straight and couldn't find his number, so I didn't manage to call him. Once you get to the landing area of the mezzanine, you can see outside because there are large glass windows. This was the first time I saw flames outside on the grass. I saw fire covering the grass area. It looked like someone had made a bonfire. The flames were about 6 foot high and covered the whole area. I didn't see any fire on the actual building at this point. There was no fire inside the mezzanine area. I was very confused. I thought that it was my neighbour's house that was on fire at first. Then when we were in the emergency exit, I still didn't know what was happening. When I saw the fire on the grass, I realised that it was bigger than just my floor. We then made our way to the ground floor. Just as you come down the last flight of stairs, on the right-hand side, there is a fire exit door. But because I could see fire in the grass area outside the fire exit, I realised I couldn't exit the building from that point. We headed towards the main entrance through glass doors into the lobby. We saw about 10 firefighters who were in a line heading straight across the lobby for the stairs. This was the first time I had seen any emergency workers. Someone told them to stop once they saw us, to let us through the door. They were wearing full gear with helmets. I can't remember if they were wearing masks. They looked equipped to put out a fire. We went straight out of the main entrance, and as we came out of the main entrance, we turned left. Mr. Chairman, I'm going to pause there in terms of Miss Jones's account of the night, but I would like to just draw attention to an event she describes in her statement which happened shortly before the fire. If I take you back, please, to page 2 of the statement.
Yes. Thank you.
And paragraph 7. On Saturday, 10th of June 2017, 2 firefighters came to my flat to carry out a fire safety check. They said they were having a fire safety day and were going around knocking on doors to check people's alarms. I didn't know about the inspection prior to them arriving. They pressed the button on both our fire alarms to check they were working. I was pleased they were there, as I had a lot of questions and I have concerns about living so high up on the 17th floor. I was worried about our front door as it didn't automatically close. I wanted to know why there wasn't an automatic shut on the door, and I also asked whether the doors in our flat were fire resistant. They reassured me that they did not need to automatically close. It only depended on the material the doors were made from. He tested the doors by banging on them and told me that the front door and the doors to the master bedroom, the children's room, the kitchen and living room, which had double sliding doors with glass, were all fire resistant and would hold for 30 minutes. Only the toilet and bathroom doors were not resistant. I did not ask about the storage cupboards. There was a 1-inch gap at the bottom of all the doors, but the rest of the frame fit properly. The fire officer said if there was ever a fire, stay put, don't leave your flat, we will always come to you. They also said to put a wet towel at the bottom of the door. The entire flat had a laminated floor. I had to sign to say they'd come to the house and completed a fire safety check. I was given a copy, but due to the events of Wednesday, 14th June, I no longer have it. There was no information about evacuation. He said, in the event of a fire, stay put. The doors will hold for half an hour and somebody will come and rescue you. I'm on the 17th floor, so I would not stay put. I would rather be on the ground floor where I can assess the situation for myself. I'm afraid of heights and never wanted to live on the 17th floor. This occasion was the only time that we'd been told anything about what to do in case of fire in the building. They didn't even have signs up when we first moved in. This came 3 or 4 months after we moved into the property. I remember seeing a small sign about fires by the lifts. It said, in the event of a fire, stay put, call 999, don't use the lift. If your house was on fire, close doors and leave the building via stairs. I first noticed this sign around autumn, winter 2016. And that's where I'll end with that statement, if I may.
Right. Thank you very much.
Our last statement, Mr. Chairman, for this morning is the inquiry witness statement of Jason Miller, who lived, as we've heard, with his partner, Miss Jones, in flat 145 on the 17th floor. The statement is at IWS 500495. There are no exhibits accompanying it, but if we go to the last page, page 6, it has a statement of truth, is signed and is dated the 8th of May 2018. Mr. Miller, as you will have heard from the reading of Miss Jones's statement, was not there on the night of the fire. He was staying at his mother's, but he was woken up by a call from Miss Jones and then drove to the tower to help her and his children. And en route, he called her and learnt that she had left the tower and had then travelled to her mother's home. I just want to just put or read just 3 paragraphs of the statement, however. And if we go back to the first page in paragraph 3. I had not been in the building previously where there had been a fire. I remember at the lifts on our floor, on the walls outside of each lift door, there were instructions about what to do if there was a fire in your flat. These signs were not there when we first arrived. It said, if there is a fire in the building, remain in your flat and call 999 from there. There's no mention of evacuating the building unless the fire is in your flat. I remember looking at the sign while waiting for the lift to arrive one day. I was with my family and clearly remember saying to them, if there was to be a fire, we would leave the building and ask questions later. It's quite late into the tenancy that we actually noticed the sign. It appeared out of the blue, so we noticed it first when it first appeared. There was another sign on the door to the stairs, but I can't remember what it said. If I could just jump a little forward, just to paragraphs 5 and 6 of the statement. Paragraph 5, Mr. Miller says, I was in the flat when it was visited by an inspector from the fire brigade, who was wearing a polo shirt with the fire brigade logo, saying he was doing a check. This was on 10th June 2017. It was nice to be reassured, given the concerns Corinne expressed in relation to the fire doors and the front door closer mechanism not being installed. We had never had a fire inspection before. He checked the fire alarm to check that it worked. It was mainly Corinne talking to him, but I listened to his answers. I didn't hear conversation about the front door because I was in the front room. Afterwards, we understood that if there was a fire, the bedroom and front doors would hold for 30 minutes. There was a clearance underneath all of the bedroom doors. I could slide my fingers and knuckles under it. And that's all I wish to read from Mr. Miller's statement. That's the reading for the morning, Mr. Chairman.
Yes. Well, Mr. Rowett, thank you very much. I think it's right that I should say that we're extremely grateful to all those who've made statements. The fact that they haven't been called to give evidence doesn't in any way diminish the value of what they've said, and they should understand that their statements will form part of the inquiry record and part of the evidence that the inquiry takes into consideration at the end of the day. Thank you. Now, our next witness, I think, is scheduled for 2 o'clock. Is
That's
that right?
right, yes.
So perhaps it would be convenient. It's a little early, but not very early. We'll rise now and resume at 2 o'clock. Have a slightly longer lunch hour.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. 2 o'clock, please. Okay.